Three Men in a Boat. The following extract is from a story about three men and a dog who go for a trip down the river Thames in England, and they have many humorous adventures. Here is one. After you pass Old Windsor, the river is somewhat uninteresting. George and I towed up past the Victoria Bridge, and as we were passing Datchet, George asked me if I remembered our first trip up the river and when we landed at Datchet at 10 o'clock at night and wanted to go to bed. I answered that I did remember it. It will be some time before I forget it. It was the Saturday before the August bank holiday. We were tired and hungry, and we same tree, and when we got to Datchet, we took out the hamper, the 2 bags and the rugs and coats, and started off to look for lodgings. We passed a very pretty little hotel with clematis and creeper over the porch, but there was no honeysuckle about it, and for some reason or other I had got my mind fixed on honeysuckle, and I said, "Oh, don't let's go in there. Let's go on a bit further and see if there isn't one with honeysuckle over it." So we went on hill. We came to another hotel that was a very nice hotel too, and it had honeysuckle on it round at the side. But Harris did not like the look of a man who was leaning against the front door. He said he did not like a nice man at all, and we were ugly boars. So we went on further. We went a goodish way without coming across any more hotels, and then we met a man and asked him to direct us to a few. He said, "Why you are coming away from them? We must turn right round and go back, and then you will come to the Stag." We said, "Oh, we had been there and didn't like it. No honeysuckles over it." "Well, then," he said, "there's the Manor House just opposite. Have you tried that?" Harris replied that we did not want to go there, did not like the looks of a man who was stopping there. Harris did not like the color of his hair, did not like his boots either. "Well, I don't know what you will do, I'm sure," said our informant, "because there are the only 2 inns in the place." "No other inns?" exclaimed Harris. "None," replied the man. "What on earth are we to do?" cried Harris. Then George spoke up. He said, "Harris and I could get a hotel built for us if we liked, and have some people made to put in." For his part, and he was going back to the Stag. Harris and I sighed and followed George, and we took our traps into the Stag and laid them down in the hall. The landlord came up and said, "Good evening, gentlemen." "Oh, good evening," said George. We want 3 beds, please." "Very sorry, sir," said landlord, "but I'm afraid we can't manage it." "Oh, well, never mind," said George. 2 will do. 2 of us can sleep in 1 bed, can't we?" We continued, turning to Harris and me. Harris said, "Oh, yes," he thought. "George and I could sleep in 1 bed very easily." "Very sorry, sir," again repeated the landlord, "but we really haven't got a bed vacant in the whole house. In fact, we are putting 2 and even 3 gentlemen in 1 bed as it is." This staggered us for a bit, but Harris, who is an old traveler, rose to the occasion and laughing cheerily said, "Oh, well, we can't help it. We must rough it. We must give us a space to sleep in the billiard room. Very sorry, sir. Three gentlemen sleeping on the billiard table already and two in the coffee room. Can't possibly take you in tonight. We picked up our things and went over to the Manor House. It was a pretty little place. I said I thought I should like it better than the other house, and Harry said, "Oh, yes, it would be all right, and we need not look at the man with the red hair. Besides, the poor fellow couldn't help having red hair." Harry spoke quite kindly and sensibly about it. The people at the Manor House did not wait to hear us talk. The landlady met us on the doorstep with a greeting that we were the 14th party she had turned away within the last hour and a half. As for our meek suggestions of stables, billiard room, or coal cellars, she laughed at them. All these knocks had been snatched up long ago. Did she know of any place in the whole village where we could get shelter for the night? Well, if we didn't mind roughing it, she did not recommend it mind, but there was a little beer shop half a mile down the Eton road. We waited to hear no more. We caught up the hamper and the bags and the coats and rugs and parcel and ran. The distance seemed more like a mile than half a mile, but we reached the place at last and rushed and panting into the bar. The people at the beer shop were rude. They merrily laughed at us. There were only three beds in the whole house, and they had 7 single gentlemen and 2 married couples sleeping there already. A kind-hearted bargeman, however, who happened to be in the bar room, thought we might try the grocer's next door to the Stag, and we went back. The grocer's was full. An old woman we met in the shop then kindly took us along with her for a quarter of a mile to a lady friend of hers who occasionally let room to gentlemen. This old woman walked very slowly, and we were 20 minutes getting to her lady friends. She enlivened the journey by describing to us, as we trailed along, the various pains she had in her back. Her lady friend's rooms were let. From there, we were recommended to number 27. Number 27 was full and sent us to number 32, and number 32 was full. Then we went back into the high road, and Harry sat down on the hamper and said he would go no further. He said it seemed a quiet spot and we wouldn't like to die there. He requested George and me to kiss his mother for him and to tell all his relations that he forgave them and died happy. At that moment, an angel came by in the disguise of a small boy, and I can't think of any more effective disguise an angel could have assumed. With a can of pop in one hand and in the other something at the end of a string, which he let down onto every flat stone he came across and then pulled up again, this producing a peculiarly unattractive sound suggestive of suffering. We asked this heavenly messenger, as we discovered him afterwards to be, if he knew of any lonely house whose occupants were few and feeble old ladies or paralyzed gentlemen preferred, who could be easily frightened into giving up their beds for the night to three desperate men? Or if not this, could he recommend us to an empty pigsty or a disgraced lime kiln or anything of that sort? He did not know of any such place, at least not one handy, but he said that if we liked to come with him, his mother had a room to spare and could put us up for the night. We fell upon his neck there in the moonlight and blessed him, and it would have made a very beautiful picture if the boy himself had not been so overpowered by our emotion and sunk to the ground, letting us all down on top of him. Harris was so overcome with joy that he fainted and had to seize the boy's can and half empty it before he could recover consciousness, and then he started off at a run and left George and me to bring on the luggage. It was a little four-roomed cottage where the boy lived, and his mother, good soul, gave us hot bacon for supper, and we ate it all, and 5 pounds and jam tart afterwards, and 2 pots of tea, and then we went to bed. There were 2 beds in the room. One was a 2 feet 6 in bed, and George and I slept in that, and kept in by tying ourselves together with a sheet, and the other was the little boy's bed, and Harris had that all to himself. And we found him in the morning with 2 feet of bare leg sticking out at the bottom, and George and I used it to hang the towels on while we bathed. We were not so particular about what sort of hotel we would have next time we went to Datchet. Thank you for listening.